Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is I am the one and only Luigi here. Yahoo! And sorry, I've got a bit of a croaky throat there. But anyway, greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is I am the one and only Maxi here, and I am of course from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos here. And today marks the glorious celebration that you've probably all been waiting for. That's of course, yes, happy 40th anniversary of the gaming franchises of all time, Super Mario Bros., which I can't believe it's been 40 years since when the game first came out in the 13th of September in 1985, specifically in Japan, for the Famicom family computers, to be more specifically. So, yeah, I digress. So, now, do you guys even remember back in the past anniversary videos we done in the past, ranging from Sonic the Hedgehog and Super Monkey Ball, Kirby, and Kingdom Hearts, including Mario Party as well, speaking of Mario Party? Well, I'm glad to report to you guys that I'm actually going to be doing a big video dedicated to the forms of this massive celebration for the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, which as a result, yeah, Mario, what can I say about Mario? He's the most iconic video game characters of all time, and he's obviously a Mr. Video Game for a reason. And generally speaking though, God, he's been everywhere. From serials, cartoon shows, and countless amounts of merchandise, and also a lot of references to counts, like for instance though, there are such references like, well, let's just say Tiny Toon Adventures in one of those episodes, and in addition to, other stuff in general. I think generally Mario is without a doubt the definitive video game character. I mean, generally speaking out that he was very, very popular since, you know, in 1985. So yes, as far as you can definitely tell, I'm about to be doing a glorious video game collection video based off of the sake the forms of this special celebration for the Super Mario Bros. 40th anniversary, for specifically not only for Mario games, specifically not only 2D games, but also 3D games. And oh yeah, before we get this thing started, yes, I also want to point things out that yes, I also got the movie adaptation, both on DVD and Blu-ray as well. So yeah, you probably get the idea that I'm a huge, die-hard Mario fan, just like Sonic the Hedgehog. So as a result, I actually got those two for the sake of the forms of, you know, enjoy the film so many times. So, but either way...
Hello!
Huh? Who said that? Mario?
You see, Maxi, before you start this collection up, not only for the fact that I've got my own games, but also I've got my games as well, and even my games as well, and even my games to top it off, and even my game, even though mind you about the fact I've got 3 versions of a singular game, so you might able to actually classify for that. And I got a bunch of games, not only for my platformers, but in addition to a series of micro games compilation. And even I've got my own games too, especially that we actually got the most recent one, which you might able to mention more about it. And even don't forget me, because I got my games too. So what would you say for this point, Maxi? Yeah, especially considering for the fact that you've got a lot of games to get through for this entire video as far as I'm aware of, so you might consider trying to able to actually go for that stuff, don't you think?
Oh, right. I forgot about that particular aspect. So, as far as what Mario has said earlier, alongside with Mario's friends, of course, I'm also going to be including, let's just say, well, not only Mario games themselves, but in addition to Luigi games, Princess Peach games, Yoshi games, Toad games, well, technically there's only 3, which you'll see what I mean, and also Wario games, and in addition to Donkey Kong games and Diddy Kong games as well. So yeah, there's a lot going on. And I thought to myself, well, it might be a bit too much to handle in regards to the forms of character-by-character kind of games. So instead, I'm actually going to be doing the similar format as the forms of how it does it back in 2021, ever since in our video game collection video based off from Sonic the Hedgehog's 30th anniversary. So I thought to myself, we'll go from system by system, starting from Nintendo Entertainment System all the way up to the most recent Nintendo system, which appears to be Nintendo Switch 2. So, yeah, this is going to be exciting. Now, I'm sure you guys may be looking forward to this particular project. I know I've been working for this for such a long while, ever since, at the start of the months of 2025. So, without further ado, let's get into the actual collection video, shall we? So, as a result, let's go!
So, to start things off with this massive collection of mine where it comes to celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, we're about to be going into, like I mentioned this earlier, system by system, much like the forms of how it does on the previous anniversary collections like Sonic the Hedgehog and Super Monkey Ball and stuff like that. So as a result, we're about to be dive into the first console release when it comes to any other Mario games, with the one that started it all, with the Nintendo Entertainment System, or Famicom if you lived in Japan. So as a result, yeah, there's not much else I can probably show off for this particular segment, but I will also try to show off the NES Classic Mini as well, so just in case about the fact I can always make sure about the fact that there are certain games I somehow got, but regardless of such though, in terms of physical releases, these are the ones I've got for the Mario games on the Nintendo Entertainment System. So, Super Mario Bros., the one that started it all when it comes to the legendary series, Super Mario Bros. And we also have Super Mario Bros. 2, aka Super Mario USA, for those of you who lived in Japan. Basically a Doki Doki Panic game, but with Mario's skin on it. So, and finally, in terms of the physical games department on the NES, which is, conveniently enough, Super Mario Bros. 3. What a legendary game this is. So, yeah, like I said, we are technically not done with this though, because I will get on to the forms of the NES Classic Mini as soon as when I boot it up. But in terms of the forms of the missing games I somehow missing on, in terms of the forms of the physical NES games for Mario games, which appears to be quite a lot, ranging from Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., Mario Bros., Donkey Kong Jr. Math, which as a result, I've heard that game stinks, but either way. And we also missing Pinball, Golf, Donkey Kong 3, Family Basics version 3, Wrecking Crew, and also Donkey Kong Classics, and in addition to Tetris, Dr. Mario, Nintendo World Championships 1990, and also Nintendo Campus Challenge, and NES Open Tournament Golf, Yoshi, Yoshi's Cookie, Mario Bros. Classic Series, and Mario's Missing, and Wario's Woods, and finally Mario's Time Machine, which I've heard about the fact that both Mario's Missing and Mario's Time Machine are basically the worst. So, anyways, onwards to the NES Classic Mini. And now we're going to be diving into the NES Classic Mini when it comes to Mario games I've got, such as for instance we have Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., Dr. Mario, and we've also got Mario Bros. And not only that, we also have Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Bros. 2, aka Super Mario USA for those of you who live in Japan, and Super Mario Bros. 3. And in addition to those games, we also have some others too, like Super Mario Bros. 2 if you live in Japan, whilst it's more commonly known nowadays is Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels for those of you who lived in the English countries, because this is basically like a hard mode of the original Super Mario Bros. Whilst it's usually attempt to call it Super Mario Bros. For super players, so anyway. And we also got NES Open Tournament Golf. And finally, most notably, we have Donkey Kong 3, despite the fact that Mario wasn't in the game, but instead, Stan Lee was in it. So, and that's about it when it comes to the NES games I have, both physical cartridge versions and some of these other games on my NES Classic Mini. So now let's move on to the next system, by the forms of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or Super Famicom if you live in Japan. Next up we have is the Super Nintendo games for Mario, and also, much like the forms of how it does it on my NES physical cartridges, I don't have that much in terms of Mario games physically, for the Super Nintendo, and just like the phones of the NES Classic Mini, I'm also going to show off a couple of games on my Super Nintendo Classic Mini as well, so you can get the idea about the phones and several other games I was missing on, but for now, these are the only games I got physically for the Super Nintendo for Mario games. So, Super Mario World. They introduces the actual character Yoshi, and conveniently enough, if you lived in Japan, this game technically calls it Super Mario Bros. 4 because obviously that was the fourth entry in terms of the 2D Mario games, if you don't want to count Super Mario USA, or you get the idea. Super Mario Kart, the greatest start with the forms of the Mario Kart franchise. So, even though this game does manage to age decently, but I won't go back into it as far as I'm aware, because either way, it does have its age though, but either way. Super Mario All-Stars, aka for those of you who lived in Japan, this game is actually called Super Mario Collection because it's a collection of 4 of those classic 2D Mario games have been remastered into 16-bit, ranging from Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 2, aka Super Mario USA, Super Mario Bros. 3, and Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, or in Japan, Super Mario Bros. 2 because, well, it plays pretty similar to the first Super Mario Bros., but the levels are much harder, as you probably would expect. Donkey Kong Country, aka for those of you who lived in Japan, this game was actually called Super Donkey Kong because obviously the game itself, when it comes to visuals department, are very impressive, so... Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, which, conveniently enough, you can play as Yoshi while you're carrying baby Mario throughout the majority of the game. And this is one of those Super Nintendo games that utilizes the Super FX chip, so pretty impressive at the time. Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest, aka for those of you who lived in Japan, Super Donkey Kong 2, so you guys want to classify that. And finally, in terms of the Super Nintendo physical cartridges for Mario games, and that's what it appears to be, of course, Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, aka for those of you who lived in Japan, Super Donkey Kong 3. So, yeah, I guess that's about it for the sake of the Super Nintendo cartridges for the Mario games. And I'm missing a couple of them, much like the Nintendo Entertainment System, which appears to be Mario Paint, Nintendo Campus Challenge, and Mario is Missing, Yoshi's Cookie, Yoshi Safari, Mario and Wario, because apparently that game was only exclusive in Japan, and in addition to that, Mario's Time Machine, which I've heard that game is even worse, and we also missing Nintendo Power Fest 94, and even some Japanese exclusives like Yoshi no Cookie, Kubapon Oven D Cookie, I think is what it says anyway, and also the preschool games, which appears to be Mario's Early Years, Fun with Numbers, Fun with Letters, with preschool fun, and also I'm missing Donkey Kong Country competition cartridge, and even with the double pack with Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World, Tetris and Dr. Mario, Wario's Woods, and as well as that, Mario's Super P-Cross, because that game was also exclusive in Japan, and even with Panel D Pawn or Tetris Attack, if usually in Tetris Attack you play as Yoshi, and that's only on the English version, so anyway. And also Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars, which again, we'll get to that until whenever we get onto the Super Nintendo Classic Mini, and also Wrecking Crew 98, Dr. Mario, and finally P-Cross NI. I think it's what it says anyway. So yeah, that's about it for the physical Super Nintendo cartridges. Now let's get on to the Super Nintendo Classic Mini. And now we're going to be hop into the phones of the Super Nintendo Classic Mini with certain Mario games I certainly do have on here. Like for instance, we have Super Mario World, good old classic Super Mario World indeed. And we also got Super Mario Kart, and even especially noticeable with Donkey Kong Country, as well as Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, and even Super Mario RPG, The Legend of the Seven Stars, or for those of you who lived in Japan, this game was actually simply called Super Mario RPG with no subtitles, so, but that doesn't end off here. There's even more games to top it off. Like, for instance, I think we actually got Super Mario All-Stars, aka for those who live in Japan, Super Mario Collection, which does contain 4 of those amazing classic Mario games for sure from 2D Mario's past. And in addition to that, we also got Mario Super Picross, or simply says Mario No Super Picross. So, as well as Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest, and even especially noticeable with Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, and that's about it basically. So that was it for the Super Nintendo games onto my not only physical releases, but also with certain games I've got on my Super Nintendo Classic Mini. So now let's move on to the forms of the glorious Nintendo 64. Alright, so now let's move on to the next system where it comes to Mario games alike, and that's what appears to be the glorious Nintendo 64. So, conveniently enough, I've almost got every single one of those games, so apart from 3 exceptions due to the forms of regional exclusives. So, yeah, let's get on with this. Super Mario 64! Woohoo! Good old classic Super Mario 64 indeed. Mario Kart 64. Such an awesome racing game for that particular system. Diddy Kong Racing, yet another cool racing game for the Nintendo 64. Yoshi's Story. Mario Party, the one that started it all when it comes to without doubt my favorite video game franchises of all time. So, yeah, not much else to add. Super Smash Bros., aka for those of you who lived in Japan, Diant no Smash Bros. So yeah, another one of the greatest starters of all, when it comes to without doubt is the coolest series, which involves around crossover characters fighting each other, and you can get the idea for this point. So yeah, another great start right there for subsequent series. Mario Golf, aka for those of you lived in, I would say in Japan most likely, that it does manage to say Mario Golf 64, I'm pretty sure. I mean, mind you, I haven't exactly looked upon that much of Japanese regional differences with old school games, as far as I'm aware. Donkey Kong 64. Oh yes, that the collectible system is a nightmare at first glance because you pretty much get the idea because of that. 101% in the game is a bit of a, you know, kind of like a marathon kind of syndrome or something. Mario Party 2. Easily without doubt my favorite Mario Party game on the system for the Nintendo 64, so at least that's to me anyway. Mario Tennis, and I believe in Japan though, this game is also called Mario Tennis 64 or something, so I may be wrong, but let me know in the comments. So, Paper Mario. Oh yes, the legendary game indeed, especially for those of you who lived in Japan. This game was actually called Mario Story, which obviously it focuses around story-driven stuff, and as far as I'm aware, this game is a masterpiece, alongside with the forms of the sequel, which we'll get to that eventually. So, yeah, very cool to have this. And finally, Mario Party 3, the last of the Mario Party games to be released on the Nintendo 64. And suffice to say, this game is amazing as well, not only because of this unique art style, but also about the fact that they improved upon the item system, and you can get the idea. Thus, you can able to play as not only Daisy, but also Waluigi as well. So yeah, great way to end things off when it comes to, like, you know, the Nintendo 64 games when it comes to Mario games alike. So, well, apart from the fact that there are 3 missing games I was missing for that particular system, which appears to be Super Mario 64 Shindo Edition, which only came out in Japan, which obviously is basically Super Mario 64, but it adds the forms of a Rumble Pack. And in addition to that, there's also Mario no Photopea, which also came out only exclusive in Japan. And finally, Dr. Mario 64, because as far as I'm aware, that game only came out in America. So because of that though, yeah, this also means it's about the fact that it's all about region locking. So because of that though, unless if you're trying to able to go after, let's just say a N64 Passport Plus 3 or something like that, which conveniently enough, that allows you to play American imports in addition to Japanese imports as well. But I don't have that though, so I'm gonna have to able to skip that for now. So either way, that was it for the Nintendo 64 Mario games, and now let's move on to the Nintendo GameCube. Next up we have is the Nintendo GameCube Mario games, and conveniently enough, I've almost got every single one of them except a couple due to the forms of, well, I'll talk more about that if we get to the end of that segment. So, Luigi's Mansion, aka for those of you who live in Japan, Luigi Mansion with, you know, the removal of the S. So, Super Smash Bros. Melee, aka for those of you who live in Japan, Smash Bros. DX. So, not exactly sure why they call it that in Japan, but I digress. Super Mario Sunshine! Woohoo! Amazing game to have for the Nintendo GameCube. Mario Party 4. Wario World. Oh yeah! Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, aka for those of you who live in Japan, Mario Golf Family Tour. So I just want to classify that for the sake of the forms of the actual Japanese name for the title. WarioWare Incorporated Mega Party Games. Basically the GameCube version of WarioWare Inc. as we all know. So either way. Mario Kart Double Dash with the two-person drivers. So I really wish that that gimmick will make a return, but oh well, no big deal. Especially that we've actually got the latest one, which we'll get to that in a moment. So, Mario Party 5. Donkey Konga. Donkey Konga 2. Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, aka for those of you who live in Japan, Paper Mario RPG, because you know, that game was basically an RPG, so as a result though, I still really love this game so much. Still, without a doubt, it's my favorite RPG games I've ever played, so next to Kingdom Hearts 2. Mario Power Tennis. Mario Party 6, the game introduced into ourselves the microphone accessory for the Nintendo GameCube, and it's easily my favorite in terms of the GameCube Mario Party games, easily. No contest. Donkey Kong Jungle Beat that utilizes DK bongos, and there's actually a very underrated gem to me though, so yeah, you can get the idea what I was expecting for this point. Dancing Stage Mario Mix, aka for those of you who lived in North America, Dance Dance Revolution Mario Mix, and finally, if you lived in Japan, Dance Dance Revolution with Mario. And still, no matter what though, this is such a unique game as it is, at least to me anyway. Mario Superstar Baseball, and I don't really know what's also known as in Japan, but that's just mainly because it has been quite some time since I actually have last played this game for sure. Mario Party 7, the final Mario Party game to be released on the Nintendo GameCube, and it's a really good send-off for the GameCube selections of Mario games, or should I say, for those of you who lived in Europe and also Australia, so either way. And finally, Mario Smash Football, aka for those of you who lived in America, Super Mario Strikers, and boy oh boy, this game is certainly more energetic as it looks, so yeah, that's all there is to it, with every single Mario games for the Nintendo GameCube, apart from few missing ones, which appears to be Nintendo Puzzle Collection, which does feature Dr. Mario and Yoshi's Cookie, well, this is mainly because that particular compilation only came out in Japan. And technically, there's actually two of those games are usually crossovers, which appears to be NBA Street version 3 and SSX on Tour, which does feature Mario, Luigi, and Peach as playable characters, but unfortunately I haven't got a chance to able to actually get around onto those. And finally, Donkey Konga 3 for the GameCube, but that's mainly because, as far as I'm aware, that game was also exclusive to Japan. So because of that, yeah, I'm very happy with the selection as it is. So let's move on to the next system, by the forms of the Nintendo Wii. Alright, so let's move on now to the next system of Mario games, and that's of course the Nintendo Wii. And just like the Nintendo GameCube, I've almost got every single one of them, apart from a few exceptions, which again, we'll mention more about it if we get to the end of this segment. So anyway, let's get to it. WarioWare Smooth Moves. Super Paper Mario. Mario Strikers Charge Football, aka for those of you who lived in North America, it is simply called Mario Strikers Charge. And finally, if for those of you who lived in the Korean, it simply calls Mario Power Soccer. So yeah, pretty interesting title for the Korean version of the game. Mario Party 8. Donkey Kong Jet Race, aka for those of you who lived in North America, Donkey Kong Barrel Blast, and this game is pretty rough, especially because no wonder why, a lot of fans out there pretty much criticizing for that game. So, Super Mario Galaxy, what a wonderful, epic game as it is, and it's still, even to this day, without a doubt is the best of one of those 3D Mario games for sure, next to, among all others as well. Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, and it does manage to take place in Beijing 2008 in China. And for those of you who lived in Japan, this game was actually called Mario and Sonic at Beijing Olympics. So as a result, it continues that particular title, at least, well, you'll find out soon enough. Super Smash Bros. Brawl, aka for those of you who lived in Japan, Smash Bros. X. So as a result, and you can definitely tell that Mario is definitely on the cover, so as a result, just like Super Smash Bros. For the 64 and Super Smash Bros. Melee, that he was a part of the forms of the actual Smash Bros. Franchise. So, Mario Kart Wii. Pretty popular that game back in the day. Mario Super Sluggers, and you can definitely tell this is the American copy, and I'm very, very happy to have this because otherwise, this game never came out on Australia and European countries because, well, since we're in the UK, we never played baseball, so I found this a bit pretty upsetting, honestly. Wario Land, the Shake Dimension, aka for those of you who lived in North America, Wario Land Shake It, because you know, you have to shake things a lot, especially with all the motion controls are involved in some scenarios, so... New play control, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, and I gotta say, this is a really cool version of the game because obviously though you don't have to necessarily worry about utilizing with the DK bongos anymore, so yeah, you can get the idea what I was gonna be thinking about it anyway. New play control, Mario Power Tennis, not as great as the forms of the original GameCube release, but with widescreen is actually a really cool addition, especially because of all that. Well, everything else is actually pretty cool looking when on widescreen mode. Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games taking place in Vancouver 2010. And speaking of Vancouver, and usually relatively speaking, it did manage to take place in Canada. And speaking of which, for those of you who lived in Japan, this game was actually called Mario and Sonic at Vancouver Olympics. So yeah, you can get the idea about this particular solution right here. New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Very popular that game as well, back then. Super Mario Galaxy 2, without a doubt, is my favorite Wii game of all time, especially because I love Super Mario Galaxy, and I enjoy Super Mario Galaxy 2 a lot, especially because, well, the soundtrack is so much more of a phenomenon for that particular orchestrated approach, if you couldn't tell. Super Mario All-Stars to able to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, which it's obviously the Super Nintendo game, but just slap onto the Wii disc, which just sounds a bit too lazy for concept-wise, but it does manage to able to contain not only the game itself, but with the forms of this cool Super Mario history, not only the booklet, but also with the forms of soundtrack CD as well, so you can get the idea for this point. So either way, yeah, I just want to include that for the sake of the forms of this particular bonus. Donkey Kong Country Returns. So, yeah, such a great game, even though it's very weird about the fact that that game receives multiple versions of it, which we'll get to that until the next category, which I'll mention more about it at some point. So, Mario Sports Mix, which does feature 4 sports into one, which appears to be dodgeball, volleyball, hockey, and the returning sports from the likes of Mario Slam Basketball for the Nintendo DS is basketball. So, yeah, just want to classify it for noticing that. Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games, and this takes place in London in UK or United Kingdom from the likes of in England. So, yeah, you can get the idea for that culture right there. And speaking of which, for those of you who lived in Japan, this game was actually called Mario and Sonic at London Olympics. So, yeah, I just want to brought that up. Alright, so I think we've got 2 games left now. Boom Street, aka for those of you who lived in North America, Fortune Street. And I'm pretty sure the Japanese version was actually called Okada Street Wii, which I'm pretty sure is more accurately a sequel to the DS game back in 2007 for the Nintendo DS. So, yeah, I just want to bring that up. And finally, Mario Party 9 with the infamous car mechanic, which most people really don't care about anymore. But the reason why I still got this because of the minigame selection, because the minigames on Mario Party 9 are very, very good, with some exceptions. So, and that's about it with every Mario games for the Nintendo Wii, basically. Apart from a few exceptions which I missed, which appears to be Captain Rainbow, because that game was exclusive to Japan, and meanwhile for the likes of the forms of Punch-Out, because obviously Donkey Kong did manage to appear in that game, but ultimately though, I didn't seem to play that much of Punch-Outs like I was used to. And there's also, let's just say, Skylanders Superchargers Racing, which does feature Donkey Kong and Bowser as playable characters that utilizes these Skylanders figurines, or amiibos, if you will. So as a result, I think that was the only amiibos usage on the Nintendo Wii for that particular game, but that's besides the point. So yeah, that's about it for the Wii Mario games. And speaking of the Wii, we're about to be moving on into, let's just say, the Wii U next. So, in fact, it's not going to be that much, but you'll see why in a moment. Okay, so let's move on to the next system for the likes of the Mario games I've got, physical-wise. That's what it appears to be, the Wii U, which, despite the fact that that system was flopped because of the forms of poor marketing and the name itself, but regardless of such though, luckily Mario still got some good games, but some of them not so much, which, either way. New Super Mario Bros. U, Nintendo Land, because it does feature 3 attractions from Mario themed, ranging from Mario Chase, Luigi's Ghost Mansion, and Yoshi's Fruit Cart. So, yeah, I feel like I'm able to count that. New Super Luigi U, basically the physical version of this particular DLC expansion of New Super Mario Bros. U. So, and I enjoyed this quite a lot. Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Winter Games. Gosh, that was a bit of a mouthful. And obviously this takes place in Russia for the sake of the forms of in Sochi. So, yeah, nothing else to add. And as far as I can definitely tell, for those of you who lived in Japan, this game was actually called Mario and Sonic at Sochi Olympics. So, yeah, I just want to classify that. It's actually much more of a shorter title in Japan compared to the forms of in the English version, so not exactly sure why though. Super Mario 3D World, a must-have for the Wii U, although mind you that, well, there's also another version which we'll get to that eventually. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, such a fantastic game, great follow-up to Donkey Kong Country Returns. Mario Kart 8, speak for itself, must have for the Wii U, but there's another version which we'll get to that in a moment. So, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, very unique game indeed, especially because it's even crazy about the fact that we've also got 3 versions of this game, which I'll get to that eventually. So, Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U, Mario Party 10, such a disappointing Mario Party game. I mean, cool concept-wise with Bowser Party, but ultimately though, this game is definitely one of the weakest in terms of, well, console Mario Party games to be more specific, so, oh well, no big deal. Yoshi's Woolly World, a really, really dang cool game on the Wii U, so yeah, you can get the idea about that. Super Mario Maker for able to try to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise. And this is such a unique game because you can able to create your very own levels from any other Mario styles, ranging from, Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, and New Super Mario Bros. U. So either way, such a cool game indeed. It's a shame about the fact that the servers has been shut down, so as a result, we can no longer try to experience the full game as originally attempted, so that sucks. Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, much like the Evolves of Mario Party 10, this game is so disappointing, especially because it's very bare bones, and not to mention though, there's not much, replayability, and not only that, the courts themselves are very bland in comparison to the Evolves of the previous Mario Tennis games like N64 and the GameCube, and heck, even with the Evolves of the Switch installments, does have unique courts, which... yeah, you get the idea. Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, and this takes place in Rio in Brazil. So either way, nothing else to add around here. And speaking of which, for those of you who live in Japan, this game is actually called Mario and Sonic at Rio Olympics. So yeah, got nothing else to say about that one either. And finally, Paper Mario Color Splash. Decent game, but not the best entry in the series though, just because it's basically... well, the infamous game sequel, which, yeah, there's nothing else to say about that game, I guess. So, and yeah, that's about it for the Wii U Mario games I actually got physically. Apart from a few exceptions, which appears to be a combo pack with New Super Mario Bros. U plus New Super Luigi U combined into one, because I feel like that release might be felt a bit redundant to me. And in addition to that, Game & Wario, I found that game to be incredibly boring, and not to mention though, it's easily my least favorite in terms of the WarioWare games to me though, but that's just me. And in addition to that, NES Remakes Pack, because it only came out in Japan and North America, much like the Evolves of how it does it on Mario Super Sluggers, and also the physical version of Mario vs. Donkey Kong Tipping Stars, because I did indeed manage to get a digital version, which I'll get to that eventually. And also we're missing Skylander Superchargers, which as a result, yeah, I'm just not overly keen on Skylanders as much. And finally, Minecraft Wii U Edition, which it does technically feature the Mario skin. And I've also want to classify for an honorable mention, that's what it appears to be, Sonic Lost World, which I still managed to get on the Wii U because of the Evolves of Yoshi's Island Zone, so I just want to classify that. Plus it did say on the Evolves within Mario Wikipedia, so as a result, I want to classify that for as a honorable mentions. So anyway, so that's about it for the Wii U games, and now let's move on to the next system, which appears to be the Nintendo Switch. And now we're about to be moving on into the next system where it comes to Mario games alike, and that is of course the glorious Nintendo Switch. And conveniently enough, I've almost got every single one of those Mario games as per usual, but I'm missing 3, which I'll get to later. So anyways, these are the only ones I've got physically for Nintendo Switch. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Such an amazing Mario Kart even to this day. Mario Plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, Super Mario Odyssey, the fantastic game indeed, especially as without a doubt is my favorite Nintendo Switch games I've ever played. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, featuring Funky New Mode, which obviously features Funky Kong, so yeah, you can get the idea about that. Mario Tennis Aces, Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, which does feature some new stages based off from Super Mario Odyssey, which, conveniently enough, it also has DLC with the special episode, so... Super Mario Party, so it's no longer in numbers, so we're actually going into Super Mario Party brand, so... Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, aka, for those of you who lived in Japan, no, Smash Bros. Special, because this game is certainly special indeed, because this game is pretty much ultimate in every single way imaginable. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, which does feature not only New Super Mario Bros. U, but also New Super Luigi U, with this very strange character, which appears to be Peachette, which, you get the idea. Yoshi's Crafted World, Super Mario Maker 2, Luigi's Mansion 3, aka, for those of you who lived in Japan, Luigi Mansion 3, because, you know, much like the previous two games, it did somehow remove the S letter, so... Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020, aka, for those of you who lived in Japan, Mario and Sonic at Tokyo 2020 Olympics, and obviously this takes place in Tokyo, in Japan. And it's a shame this is the last entry in terms of the Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games series, because, you know, the licensing has been moved on, so, oh well, no big deal. Paper Mario, the Origami King. Super Mario 3D All-Stars, aka, for those of you who lived in Japan, Super Mario 3D Collection, which does contain Super Mario 64, based off from Super Mario 64 Shindo Edition in Japan, and we also got Super Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Galaxy, despite Galaxy 2 was not in this compilation, which is a shame because that way it could have been, you know, pretty worth it if that does include Super Mario Galaxy 2, but it's already too late, so... Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. But if you lived in Japan, this game was actually called Super Mario 3D World plus Fury World. So, yeah, pretty cool, amazing version of Super Mario 3D World. Mario Golf Super Rush. It's alright, game. WarioWare, get it together. Mario Party Superstars, in some cases much more of a superior version of the top 100, concerning that we've now got proper boards and in addition to over whopping 100 minigames, or technically 105 to be more exact, so... Mario Strikers Battle League Football, aka for those of you who lived in America, it is simply called Mario Strikers Battle League, and this game is very disappointing. It's not much else to it, it's just pretty much bare bones, much like the evolves of how it does it on Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, if you remember that game on the Wii U, so... Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, featuring the Cosmic Edition, so... yeah, cool to have this. Super Mario Bros. Wonder, the first Mario game to feature a different voice actor for Mario and Luigi, and even Daisy as well, so... yeah, that's what I classify for noticing this. WarioWare, move it! Super Mario RPG as a remake for the Nintendo Switch, and sure enough, this game is pretty much legendary as it is, much like the good old classic Super Nintendo game. Mario vs. Donkey Kong, a remake to the Game Boy Advance classic, which I always appreciate because I tend to prefer this kind of style compared to the forms of the Lemmings gameplay style from the likes of any other Mario vs. Donkey Kong sequels, but that's just me. Princess Peach Showtime. Paper Mario, The Thousand-Year Door. I still love this game, even on the GameCube and nowadays with the Switch remake. And of course, much like always, for those of you who live in Japan, this game still technically calls it Paper Mario RPG, so yeah, you can get the idea on the GameCube version. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, aka for those of you who live in Japan, it simply calls it Luigi Mansion 2 HD, but confusingly though, is that the North American version never actually called Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon HD, it just simply calls it the same name as the European version, so not exactly sure how they come across for that. Super Mario Party Jamboree, the latest Mario Party games, well, it's not until the Switch 2 edition, which we'll get to that eventually, so yeah, pretty cool game indeed. Mario Luigi Brothership, aka for those of you who live in Japan, it simply calls it Mario Luigi RPG Brothership, I think is what it says anyway, so pretty nice that Mario Luigi finally returns after that particular bankruptcy for that, you know, Alpha Dream as a company, so... And finally, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, in some cases technically the third version of the existence of Donkey Kong Country Returns, so pretty crazy to be able to have that particular version on Switch. So, and that's about it for the Mario games be released on the Nintendo Switch, but there's also going to be some digital exclusive ones here and there as well, which we'll get to that later. So, anyway, in terms of physical releases I was missing on, and that's what appears to be 3 of them, which appears to be, well, Minecraft, because it, much like the defaults of how it does it on not only the Wii U, but as well as the new 3DS version as well, it also contains the Super Mario Pack for Minecraft, but also Tetris 99, and finally Nintendo World Championships NES Edition, but that's just mainly because, well, it's nowhere near as the same as the forms of NES remakes in my opinion, but it's sure enough though, it looks pretty much promising enough, but usually that game is now going to be only available digitally, no longer physical, because it's pretty expensive now, at least as far as I've noticed. So, anyway, so that does it for the Nintendo Switch Mario games, and now let's move on to the latest system, and that's what appears to be none other than Nintendo Switch 2. Speaking of Nintendo Switch 2, here we are now on to the next category where it comes to my ultimate Super Mario Bros. 40th Anniversary Game Collection video. And here we go, on to the latest Nintendo console, and that's what appears to be Nintendo Switch 2. And so far, we've actually got 3 of those Mario games be released on Nintendo Switch 2 so far, whilst eventually, during the evolving bit later on in 2025, and possibly the future years, more of those Nintendo Switch 2 games for Mario will soon follow. So, these are the only ones I've got physically, so here we go. Mario Kart World. No longer a number entry, but hey, at least it's different. Donkey Kong Bonanza. What an epic game this is. Especially it's been a very long time since Donkey Kong finally makes its comeback in 3D since Donkey Kong 64. And finally, Super Mario Party Jamboree Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Jamboree TV, which does bring in some small content that was not found on Switch 1 version. So, yeah, I guess that's about it basically. Mind you, keep this in mind, I'm only missing 2 things for Nintendo Switch 2 Mario stuff, which appears to be not only Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Keep that in mind though, because that game was only available digitally. And as far as I'm aware, it does manage to contain Super Mario Bros. 4K, which I'm guessing is one of those mini games you can able to activate for. And in addition to that, there's also Nintendo GameCube Nintendo Classics app, which, keep that in mind, we actually so far got Mario Smash Football or Super Mario Strikers if you lived in America. So logically that was about the fact that more Mario games will be added to the actual library for that app. And like I said earlier, is that more Nintendo Switch 2 Mario games will be soon followed for 2025 all the way up to the future years to come, because as to be expected, this is only just the beginning for the Nintendo Switch 2 lifespan. So either way, so that was about it. I know this segment is actually very short because, you know, this is only just the beginning for the Nintendo Switch 2. So onwards to the forms of the next category, and as a result, we are basically done with the console Mario game releases, and now let's move on to the handheld stuff, starting with not only Game Boy, but also Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance in this single category. So, yeah. Okay, here we go now, on to the handhelds now. And the first one out of the lineup, which appears to be the OG Game Boy, the one that started it all when it comes to gaming handhelds. So either way, and conveniently enough, I've almost got every single one of those Mario games for the Game Boy, so these are the ones I've somehow got. Super Mario Land, Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins, Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, Donkey Kong, or if I like to call it Donkey Kong 94, because that game did came out in 1994. Mario's Picross, and I'm very glad to have this, although unfortunately my save data battery just doesn't work, which I do definitely need to sort that out at some point in the future, so oh well. Donkey Kong Land 1, Donkey Kong Land 2, Game & Watch Gallery, And finally, for the original Game Boy, Donkey Kong Land 3. Mind you, this particular game never came out in Japan, but that's just because, well, conveniently enough, we can go into the yet another Nintendo handheld by the forms of the Game Boy Color. And conveniently enough, before we get into more details about that though, I am missing in terms of the OG Game Boy stuff from Mario, which appears to be quite a lot actually, which appears to be Alleyway, Baseball, Tetris, Golf, Dr. Mario, Yoshi, and Yoshi's Cookie. And on top of that, there's also Warrior Blast featuring Bomberman, and also Tetris Attack, and even P-Cross 2, because that game only came out in Japan. And of course, there's also yet another Japanese exclusive version for the OG Game Boy with Game & Watch Gallery 2, and finally Warrior Land 2, but that's just mainly because no matter what though, eventually we can get into the Game Boy Color next. So, and also conveniently enough, I've almost got every single one of those Game Boy Color games for Mario, apart from 3 exceptions. So, anyways, let's get on with the Game Boy Color now. Wario Land 2, the Game Boy Color version. Game & Watch Gallery 2, the Game Boy Color version. Super Mario Bros. Deluxe. Game & Watch Gallery 3. Mario Golf for the Game Boy Color. Wario Land 3. Mario Tennis for the Game Boy Color. And finally, Donkey Kong Country, or if I like to call it, the notorious version of Donkey Kong Country, because I still haven't beaten the game yet, because it's really dang hard. It is seriously, it's without doubt, the hardest version of the game I've ever played. Oh man. But either way, in terms of the missing games I was missing on for the Game Boy Color, and that's what it appears to be, the majority of the games are Japanese exclusives, which appears to be Donkey Kong GB, Dinky Kong, and Dixie Kong, which is basically like a Game Boy Color version of Donkey Kong Land 3, and that particular game only came out in Japan, and usually that game came out in 2000. So, and meanwhile, on the subject for that matter though, we also got, let's just say, Mobile Golf and Mario Family, because I'm pretty sure those games are also exclusive in Japan. So because of that though, yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that particular absence of those. So either way, so that's about it for the Game Boy Color stuff. And now let's move on to the Game Boy Advance, the final of the Game Boy family of systems. So let's get on with this. Super Mario Advance, which does feature Super Mario Bros. 2 as a remake, so alongside with Mario Bros. For the Mario Bros. Classic. Mario Kart Super Circuit, aka for those of you who lived in Japan, Mario Kart Advance, because obviously this game came out exclusively to the Game Boy Advance. So, Wario Land 4, without a doubt the greatest Wario Land games ever. And speaking of which, for those of you who lived in Japan, this game was actually known as Wario Land Advance, because you know, Wario Land 4 only came out on the Game Boy Advance. So, Super Mario World, Super Mario Advance 2. Bit of a odd release for that particular numbered installment with the Mario Advance series of games. Yoshi's Island, Super Mario Advance 3. Game & Watch Gallery Advance, aka for those of you who lived in America, Game & Watch Gallery 4, because this is the 4th entry of the entire Game & Watch Gallery of games. WarioWare Inc. Minigame Mania, aka if you lived in America, this game was actually known as WarioWare Inc. Mega Microgames. So, yeah, it's one classify that. Donkey Kong Country, the remake of the Game Boy Advance. So, yeah, pretty cool to have that. Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3. Without a doubt my favorite in terms of the Super Mario Advance games for sure. Mario Luigi Superstar Saga, aka for those of you who lived in Japan, Mario Luigi RPG, because this game is an RPG game after all, so suffice to say, a really good start for the sake of the forms of the Mario Luigi series. Mario Golf Advance Tour, which is basically more accurately a similar game as in Mario Golf for the Game Boy Color, but on the Game Boy Advance, so nothing else to add around here. Mario vs. Donkey Kong, beloved classic, especially it's almost like a successor to Donkey Kong 94 because of the similar gameplay style. Donkey Kong Country 2, another remake for the sake of the funds of bringing several of those Super Nintendo games onto the Game Boy Advance. Super Mario Ball, aka for those if you lived in North America, Mario Pinball Land. And this game is very bizarre, especially because it's very unfortunate you can't save your progress during the forms of collecting stars and stuff, which is pretty unfair. WarioWare Twisted, where you can able to use the gyro sensing for this, and obviously as you saw, this is basically the North American copy of the game, which I'm very pleased to have this because this game gets pretty expensive nowadays, especially with complete box and everything. And yeah, you can definitely tell that this game only came out not only in Japan, but as well as North America, and strangest out of them all though, it also came out in Australia, but not in Europe, but that's mainly because the phones the Quicksilver kind of effect, so yeah, that's why I wanted to bring that up. Yoshi's Universal Gravitation, aka for those of you who lived in North America, Yoshi Topsy Turvy. So because of that though, yeah, you can definitely tell for the fact that this is another one of those gyro sensing controls, although you have to tilt left and right instead of moving around a lot. So yeah, it's another one of those coolest Game Boy cartridges out there. Mario Party Advance, not a big fan of that game, especially it's nothing like any other Mario Party games to me. DK King of Swing, Mario Power Tennis, aka for those of you who lived in North America, Mario Tennis Power Tour. And finally, conveniently enough, Donkey Kong Country 3, the last of one of the Game Boy Advance remakes for the sake of the funds of Donkey Kong Country games. So yeah, that's all there is to it for the Game Boy Advance lineup. So the only couple of I'm missing, which appears to be the majority of the classic NES games ranging from Super Mario Bros., Donkey Kong, and in addition to that, Dr. Mario, and on top of that, there's also Famicom minis as well, ranging from Wrecking Crew, Mario Bros, and in addition to Super Mario Bros. 2, The Lost Levels, and suffice to say, and finally, most notably, Dr. Mario and Puzzle League. So yeah, those are the only ones I'm missing. So apart from those aside things though, I am super happy about the selection. So anyways, now let's move on to the dual screens with the Nintendo DS. Alright, so next up we have is the Nintendo DS Mario games, and conveniently enough, I've almost got every single one of them, just like any other systems, apart from a few exceptions, which you get the drill for this point. Super Mario 64 DS, a remake of the good old classic Super Mario 64. WarioWare Touched. Yoshi Touch and Go, pretty much just almost like a tech demo for, DS's capabilities with the stylus and everything, so yeah, there's nothing right to home about. Super Princess Peach. Mario Kart DS, fantastic game indeed. Mario Luigi Partners in Time, aka for those of you who lived in Japan, Mario Luigi RPG 2x2, because you can take control of not only Mario Luigi, but also Baby Mario and Baby Luigi as well, so you get the idea about that. Tetris DS, because it does manage to feature Mario on here, as well as Donkey Kong and Yoshi as well, so that technically counts. New Super Mario Bros. Mario Slam Basketball, aka for those of you who lived in North America, Mario Hoops 3-on-3, and finally, for those of you who lived in Japan, Mario Basketball 3-on-3, because this is a basketball game of course, and I still really love the fact that it does manage to be able to have a collaboration with Square Enix with featuring Final Fantasy characters, so yeah, that's actually pretty cool. Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, March the Minis, so basically it's almost like a Lemmings type of gameplay with Mini Mario and all that. Yoshi's Island DS, although this game was originally going to be called Yoshi's Island 2, but ultimately though they go for Yoshi's Island DS, so... Wario Master of Disguise, aka for those of you who live in Japan, Wario D7, just because you can able to turn into 7 different counterparts of Wario, or technically 8 if you want to count Thief Wario, and I'm still not a big fan of this game because it's all very finicky and it's a lot more gimmicky too, so... Diddy Kong Racing DS, which is basically it's like a remake of the good old classic Diddy Kong Racing from the Nintendo 64. Donkey Kong Jungle Climber, a sequel to Donkey Kong or DK King of Swing. Mario Party DS, the last good Mario Party game until the Switch era, so as a result, you get the idea about this is because of all that anti-piracy screen decides to come into play as memes, so yeah, you can get the idea about that. Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games DS version, and again, for those of you who lived in Japan, this game was called Mario and Sonic at Beijing Olympics, so yeah, nothing else to add. Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, aka for those of you who lived in Japan, Mario & Luigi RPG 3, because this is the third entry of the Mario & Luigi games, and along with the Thousand Year Door, this is easily without doubt is my favorite Mario & Luigi game I've ever played, so, which I'm sure most of you all agree with me on this. WarioWare DIY, in some cases do it yourself, and this is a very unique game as well, because that was before when Mario Maker was around, you can able to actually create your very own microgames onto your survey, so yeah, that's actually pretty cool back in the day, so... Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games, and again, for those of you who lived in Japan, this game is called Mario and Sonic at Vancouver Olympics, so you get the idea about that. And finally, in terms of the DS Mario games, Mario vs. Donkey Kong Mini Land Mayhem. So, yeah, got nothing else to add about that one. So that's about it in terms of the DS Mario games, apart from I'm somehow missing a couple, which appears to be Yakaham DS, because that was exclusive to Japan. And on the subject for that matter though, there is technically a Wi-Fi version of that as well, which also came out in Japan. And we also missing let's just say Game & Watch Collection, which is basically it's like a compilation game of the Game & Watch series of games. And I suppose finally, which appears to be Akita Street DS, which is basically it's like a Monopoly Mario game with Dragon Quest characters every once in a while. So as a result, because yeah, as far as I'm aware, that game was exclusive to Japan as well. So either way, so now let's move on to the Nintendo 3DS games. And oh boy, there's actually quite a lot I've got, and you can definitely tell what I mean if we dive into that particular category. Alright, now we're moving on to the Nintendo 3DS Mario games, and you know, just like usual, I've almost got every single one of them, apart from a few exceptions, as be expected. So either way, let's hop into this. Super Mario 3D Land, must have for the 3DS. Mario Kart 7. Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games, and again, for those of you who lived in Japan, this game was called Mario and Sonic at London Olympics, so yeah, not much else to say about this one. Mario Tennis Open. New Super Mario Bros. 2. That was the first Mario game to feature DLC content, so... Paper Mario Sticker Star.
Non, les yick, les puke, les grandes barfs. I refuse to date crude poultry.
And you're right. That game sucks. That game absolutely stinks. So, yeah, it's gonna be in the bottom of the barrel when it comes to, like, you know, Paper Mario games and stuff like that, because, you know, they removed any other RPG elements, which, you get the idea. Luigi's Mansion 2, aka for those of you lived in Japan, Luigi Mansion 2, and those of you lived in America, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, because, you know, Dark Moon is the most important plot element in terms of the forms of, well, the story itself. Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, which does feature some extra content that was not found on the Wii original, so... Mario & Luigi Dream Team Brothers, aka if you lived in North America, this game is simply called Mario & Luigi Dream Team. And finally, for those of you who lived in Japan, Mario & Luigi RPG 4, and it does have a subtitle by the way, called Dream Adventure, I think is what it's called anyway in Japan, so yeah. Mario Party Island Tour, it's alright, I mean it's not the best, but regardless of such though, it's not great either. Yoshi's New Island with the infamous soundtrack, which, as a result, I have no idea why they've gone for this particular composition with the soundtrack in this. Mario Golf World Tour, what a great Mario sports game indeed, at least on the 3DS anyway. And it's a shame about the fact that the online service has been shut down, and straight to the point, that you can still able to try to get this, you know, although DLC is no longer available now, which kinda sucks. Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 3DS, and yeah, I actually do like this, so especially it does contain Smash Run, which I certainly found to be a lot better and funner at the same time in comparison to Smash Tour, but that's just mainly because Smash Tour is not really my thing anymore. Ultimate NES Remakes, a combination of, you know, NES Remakes 1 stages and NES Remakes 2 stages, so plus Mario's on the actual things itself, so you can get the idea. Puzzle & Dragons Z plus Puzzle & Dragons Super Mario Bros. Edition, which is a very interesting combo pack, and suffice to say it's basically Puzzle & Dragons but with Mario skin, so that's why I've had to include that as part of the Vaults of the Physical Games collection. Mario & Luigi Paper Jam Brothers, aka for those of you who lived in America, it's simply called Mario & Luigi Paper Jam, and if you lived in Japan, this game is actually called, I would say Mario & Luigi RPG Paper Mario Mix, I'm pretty sure, so yeah, at least as far as I can try to guess it correctly. Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, but again, if you lived in Japan, this game is called Mario and Sonic at Rio Olympics. So, I'm generally surprised that the handheld version came out first, before the console version, specifically the Wii U, so yeah, you can get the idea. Mario Party Star Rush. This game is actually pretty good, even though it's not the best, I will say that much, but either way, Coin Avalon is pretty fun, especially that was before that one of those latest Mario games, or Mario Party games, to able to bring that mode back, so... Super Mario Maker for the Nintendo 3DS basically is like a watered down version of the superior Wii U version, so, but regardless of such though, it's nice to have it, I guess, especially if you want to play that game on the go, and create your own levels on for your liking, so... Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World. Basically, it does contain some extra content that was not found on the Wii U version, such as Poochie, alongside with the forms of Poochie Pups, and in addition to the Yoshi Theater too. So either way, yeah, cool to have this, I guess. Mario Sports Superstars, which does contain 5 sports into one particular sports compilation, which it does contain football, or soccer if you lived in America, baseball, tennis, horse racing, strangely enough, and golf. So, yeah, nothing else to add about this is. Mario Luigi Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions, aka for those of you who lived in Japan, Mario Luigi RPG 1 DX, because this game is a remake of the beloved classic Game Boy Advance game, which is of course Mario Luigi Superstar Saga, but in addition to a brand new side story, which I'm honestly not a big fan of because it's luck-based, and that is of course Minion Quest, The Search for Bowser, so yeah. Mario Party, the top 100, this game is now pretty much disappointing, much like Mario Party 10, because there's not much content on this game, which thankfully, the Switch equivalent is actually a lot more superior, just because not only it does contain proper boards, but also online play from the start. So either way, in this game in particular though, it does have 100 mini-games, which is nice, but usually though, it only has one board, and that's about it, so that's very lame. That's very, very lame. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker for the Nintendo 3DS, and much like the Switch version, it does contain some stages based off from Super Mario Odyssey, which, yeah, it's very convenient that this version did came out at the exact same time as the Switch version, so yeah, that's actually quite interesting to say the least. WarioWare Gold. What a fantastic game this is, despite it did sell very well sadly, but that's just mainly because it did came out during the Switch's lifespan. But regardless of such though, with whopping 300 micro games included, and it certainly is definitely a lot more worth it, for the sake of the forms of the, WarioWare fanatics such as myself. Luigi's Mansion, aka for those of you who lived in Japan, Luigi Mansion for the Nintendo 3DS remake. So as a result, yeah, it's not my favorite version of the game. I still prefer the GameCube original, so that's just me. And finally, Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey. God, that was a bit of a mouthful. Anyway, and for those of you who lived in Japan, this game is actually called Mario & Luigi RPG 3 DX, because much like Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions, this game is basically a remake of the beloved classic DS game Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. And unfortunately, this game suffers the forms of poor sales due to the forms of that was before Alpha Dream got bankrupted. And no matter what though, this is currently the worst selling Mario games of all time, just because no matter what though, it also came out during the forms of the Switch's lifespan as well. So, and in addition to that, about the fact that, with Bowser Jr.'s Journey, it's like a you get the idea. So yeah, that was about it for the 3DS games of Mario games. Apart from I'm missing a couple, which appears to be, well, there's the physical version of Mario vs. Donkey Kong Tipping Stars, but much like the forms of the Wii U version, I already got it on digital format. And in addition to that, there's also Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix, which technically that game did receive the physical version in European version, but not so much the North American version. So, and we're also missing Skylanders Superchargers Racing, and finally with the forms of Minecraft, the new 3DS edition, which technically that particular physical version only came out in North America, so as a result it's going to be one of those region lock systems. So because of that though, yeah, there's nothing right to hum about. Speaking of the forms of digital stuff, let's move on now to the forms of digital distribution exclusives, starting with the Nintendo Wii Virtual Console lineup. Alright, here comes the fun part, and that's what appears to be the rest of the digital distribution downloads of the Mario games. And to kick things off, we're about to diving into the glorious Nintendo Wii, not only for its Virtual Console lineup, but as well as the WiiWare stuff as well. And first of all, is that luckily for me, I actually got every single WiiWare downloads for the Mario games, usually for only 2 of them, which is a good thing. Now, as far as the forms of the Virtual Console lineup, as far as I'm aware, I've almost got every single one of them, apart from a few exceptions, which I'll get to that in a moment. So, yeah, let's get to it. So here we go. We have Donkey Kong right here, Donkey Kong Jr., Mario Bros., NES Open Tournament Golf, Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, or Super Mario Bros. 2 if you lived in Japan, that is. Super Mario Bros. 2, aka Super Mario USA for those who lived in Japan. Super Mario Bros. 3. And what else we got? I'm sure there's actually some more around here. There's Warriors Woods, and also we have Super Mario World, and also we've got Mario Super P-Cross, and also we've got Donkey Kong Country 1, Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest, Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, Super Mario Kart, Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars, Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, Paper Mario, Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, Mario Party 2, Super Smash Bros. Because Mario is in the actual thing, so I just want to classify that. And lastly, in terms of the Virtual Console lineup for the Mario games, which appears to be Yoshi's Story. So yeah, that's about it for the Virtual Console lineup. The only couple I was missing, which appears to be the majority of the NES games, I'm pretty sure, which appears to be Pinball, Mario and Yoshi, for those of you who lived in the European version, or for those of you who lived in America, it simply calls Yoshi. So, and also I'm missing Donkey Kong Jr. Math, and also Wrecking Crew, Panel D-Pong, because that game was only exclusive to Japan, and also I'm missing Yoshi's Cookie, and in addition to Donkey Kong 3, and 2 honorable mentions, which appears to be some sort of like a special bundles you get, depending on what specific Wii you've got, back in 2010 that is. So for those of you who lived in the European version, there's the Donkey Kong Original Edition, which is basically is just, well, Donkey Kong again, but with an additional level with 50M. So yes, well classified that. And for those of you who lived in Japan, you're able to actually get yourselves the special variation of Super Mario Bros. Called Super Mario Bros. 25th Anniversary, which means it's basically the same thing as this right here, but every single question mark blocks has been replaced by the number 25 to represent the 25th anniversary, you know? So that's that. So now let's move on to the WiiWare stuff, and like I said earlier, luckily I've got all of them, starting with the very first one right here. Dr. Mario and Gem Buster, aka for those of you who lived in North America, this game was called Dr. Mario Online RX, because that was technically the first Dr. Mario game you can play online with, so at least as far as I can recall. And then the second being WarioWare DIY Showcase, which is basically more accurately like a bite-sized version of WarioWare DIY for the DS, so yeah, that's why I classified that. So yeah, that was about it for the Nintendo Wii digital download distribution stuff for the Nintendo Wii, like I said earlier, for the Mario games. And next up in the lineup, which appears to be, technically speaking, not one, but 2 systems to be more specifically, not only for the Nintendo DSi, for its DSiWare stuff, but alongside with the forms of the 3DS stuff as well. So we're about to jump into that right now. Now, if you couldn't tell about the fact that yes, I somehow booted up my Nintendo 3DS, and that's mainly because the next system we're about to be diving into is that we're going to be experiencing a multitude of download exclusives for not only for the Nintendo DSi, but alongside with the forms of some 3DS exclusive eShop games, and on top of that, there's also a virtual console lineup of Mario games as well. So this particular segment is not going to be that long either, so as a result, the first one of the lineup though, which appears to be the DSiWare games. So as a result, these are the only ones I've got on my 3DS most likely. So here's WarioWare Snapped, and Mario vs. Donkey Kong Minis March Again. So yeah, I guess that's about it for the Nintendo DSiWare selections of games for Mario. So the only ones I'm sort of missing for the DSiWare games, which appears to be Birds and Beans, Dr. Mario Express, Paper Aeroplane Chase, as well as Art Style Picto Bits, and also Mario Calculator, Mario Clock, Nintendo DSi, Metronomy, I think is what it says anyway, Game & Watch, Donkey Kong Jr., Game & Watch Mario Cement Factory, and as well as that, there's also the downloadable version of WarioWare Touched, which at this point in time, I've already got the game physically, so as a result though, there's absolutely no reason for me to be able to actually get that particular version of that particular downloadable version of it. So yeah, you can get the idea for this point. So anyways, now let's move on to the forms of the virtual console lineup for the Nintendo 3DS. So again, this segment is not going to be very long, so as a result, these are the ones I've got. So anyway, Tetris, which is very self-explanatory, Super Mario Land, Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins, Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, Game & Watch Gallery 1, and Donkey Kong, or if I like to call it Donkey Kong 94, and also we've got Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, Wario Land 2, and finally Wario Land 3. So yeah, I guess that's about it for the 3DS Virtual Console lineup. So there are a couple of I was missing, which appears to be Alleyway, Baseball, and also Golf, Mario's Picross, and also Dr. Mario, even Super Mario Bros., Game & Watch Gallery 2, Donkey Kong Jr., NES Open Tournament Golf, Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, Yoshi, Wrecking Crew, Mario Golf, and also Donkey Kong. Picross 2, because much like the forms of the actual Game Boy cartridge, obviously though, Picross 2 only came out in Japan, so it makes it a little bit more obvious. So, and also Super Mario Bros. 2, aka Super Mario USA, for those of you who live in Japan, Super Mario Bros. 3, Donkey Kong 3, Mario Bros., Warriors Woods, Mario Tennis, and also Tetris Attack, and Donkey Kong Land 1, 2, and 3, Donkey Kong Original Edition, Game & Watch Gallery 3, Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario Kart, Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Conquest, Donkey Kong Country 3 Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, and as well as Mario Super Picross, and finally, Panel D Pon, which, yeah, that's quite a lot of Virtual Console games I was, missing for the 3DS library. So because of that, though, yeah, it kind of sucks, though, honestly, just because, well, at this point in time, I'm pretty much used to with, well, you get the idea, playing games on consoles anyway. So, anyway, so now let's move on into the Nintendo eShop exclusive downloads for Mario games. So, to kick things off, we have is Photos with Mario, which is basically more accurately an AR kind of game based off from the likes of in Super Mario 3D Land. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to have this into my digital distribution downloads. So, yeah, that's actually pretty swell. And we also have Mario vs. Donkey Kong Tipping Stars. And in addition to that, Mario and Donkey Kong Minis on the Move. And there's also Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge. And the honorable mentions when it comes to the eShop downloads, and that's what it appears to be, Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games Virtual Card Album, which generally this only came out in Europe or the UK specifically though, because of the influence of the culture. So because of that though, yeah, I guess that's all there is to it when it comes to the eShop download exclusives for the Mario games on the 3DS. So again, there are some missing games I somehow missed out on, and that's what it appears to be. Obviously, some ports like, Game & Watch, Donkey Kong Jr., Dr. Mario Express, and in addition to, you get the idea, the majority of some of these DSiWare stuff, well, I still managed to get 2 of them, as you saw earlier, and in addition to that, I missing Club Nintendo Picross, and in addition to, well, obviously Donkey Kong Original Edition, like I mentioned this earlier, and as well as that, Dr. Mario Miracle Cure, and on top of that, Club Nintendo Picross Plus, and of course, finally, Minecraft New Nintendo 3DS Edition. So, yeah, I guess that's all there is to it. So that's pretty much about it for the Nintendo 3DS, as far as not only DSiWare stuff, but also with the forms of some eShop download exclusives, as well as Virtual Console lineup. So because of that, now let's move on to the Wii U Virtual Console and eShop download exclusives now. Alright, so now we're going to be jumping into the Wii U, and it's all due to the fact that we've got, indeed, some Virtual Console games for Mario, as well as that, the eShop exclusive games as well. So as a result, we'll go for the actual specific Virtual Console lineup first, and then we'll go into the eShop stuff eventually. So either way, let's hop in. So first up we have is the NES selections of games on here. So we have Donkey Kong, Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 2, for those of you who lived in Japan, and as more commonly known, Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, Super Mario Bros. 2, aka Super Mario USA, for those of you who lived in Japan, and of course, Super Mario Bros. 3. So we got the rest of the 2D Mario games onto this particular category. So next up we have is the Super Nintendo games on the Virtual Console lineup of Mario games, such as Super Mario World, and also Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Conquest, Donkey Kong Country 3 Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, and Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. So yeah, that's about it for that. And also we got the only N64 downloadable game I've got, and that's what appears to be Donkey Kong 64, which will explain more about that if we dive into the missing games category. So, anyway, let's move on to the Game Boy Advance. Like, we've got Mario Kart Super Circuit, Mario Luigi Superstar Saga, aka for those of you who live in Japan, Mario Luigi RPG, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Wario Land 4, Mario Party Advance, and finally, Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3, because in that particular version of the game, by the way, does contain e-reader levels already unlocked from the start, so pretty fantastic all things considered. And next we have the Nintendo DS games on here. Super Mario 64 DS, Mario Kart DS, New Super Mario Bros., Mario Luigi Partners in Time, Mario Party DS, Wario Master of Disguise, WarioWare Touched, Donkey Kong Jungle Climber, Mario Slam Basketball, Yoshi's Island DS, and finally, Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, March of the Minis. So, now, in terms of the forms of some games I was missing for the Virtual Console lineup, which appears to be, much like on the ones on the 3DS, I'm missing quite a lot, which appears to be, well, Donkey Kong Jr., Mario's Super Picross, Mario Bros., Panel de Pon, because that game is once again exclusive to Japan, and also I'm missing Yoshi, and Super Mario Kart, Wrecking Crew, and in addition to Donkey Kong 3, Golf, Pinball, Wario's Woods, NES Open Tournament Golf, Dr. Mario, and Super Mario World, Super Mario Advance 2, WarioWare Inc., Minigame Mania, Yoshi's Island, Super Mario Advance 3, Mario Tennis Power Tour, Super Mario Advance, Donkey Kong Jr. Math, Mario Golf Advance Tour, Mario Pinball Land, or Super Mario Ball if you lived in the European version, as well as the Japanese versions, so yeah, you can get the gist of it. DK King of Swing, and also Super Mario 64, and also Yoshi Touch and Go, Paper Mario, and Mario Tennis specifically for the Nintendo 64, and Mario Golf also for the Nintendo 64, Game & Watch Gallery 4 or Game & Watch Gallery Advance if you lived in European releases, and in addition to that, I'm also missing Mario Kart 64, Yoshi's Story, Mario Party 2, and in addition to Wrecking Crew 98, because that game was exclusive for Japan. So because of that though, now I do know for a fact that there's technically some even more download Mario games on the Wii U in terms of retro games by the forms of the Nintendo Wii, which generally though, I've already got them physically, so but these are the only games I was missing for the Wii downloads for the Wii U, such as Donkey Kong Country Returns, and in addition to Mario Sports Mix, Mario Strikers Charged or Mario Strikers Charged Football, Mario Super Sluggers, because that game only came out in Japan and America, as you probably would expect, New Play Control, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, and New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and we also missing, Super Mario Galaxy, Super Mario Galaxy 2, Super Paper Mario, and Wario Land Shake It, or Wario Land The Shake Dimension, and finally, WarioWare Smooth Moves, which is very bizarre about the fact that none of those Mario Party games on the Wii, specifically both Mario Party 8 and 9, never gets re-released digitally, which is kind of odd. But anyway, enough about that. So now let's move on to the eShop exclusive games for the Mario games on the Wii U. So logically though, I've almost got every single one of them, but these are the ones I've currently got at the bottom, such as NES Remix, which does feature Super Mario Bros. Onto this particular package, NES Remix 2, Mario vs. Donkey Kong Tipping Stars, and finally, Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge. So yeah, I guess that's all there is to it. So there are a couple I was missing, which I know for a fact I technically also got New Super Luigi U digital version onto my DLC department on New Super Mario Bros. U. But when it comes to eShop exclusive titles I was missing, which appears to be, well, there's only like two I was missing, which appears to be Dr. Luigi And on top of that, there's also Amiibo Tab Nintendo's Greatest Bits, which I don't usually classify for counting that because it's more likely like selections of demos of any other like games that you get on here. So anyway, and finally, Minecraft Wii U Edition, just because, well, I was very, very unfortunate to able to not get that version. So, but anyways, that's it for the Wii U, and now let's move on to the final category in terms of the phones of this huge collection, and that's what appears to be onto the Nintendo Switch, when it comes to the eShop download exclusives on here. And now we're on to the final category in terms of the phones of this Mario game collection of some sort, and this time we're now entering into the Nintendo Switch eShop downloads. So these are the only ones I've got at the moment, so as a result we've got the rest of the Arcade Archives editions for some Mario games for sure, like Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong 3, and Versus Super Mario Bros. Right there. But that doesn't end off here, because there's technically one more, which appears to be on the miscellaneous, which appears to be Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, which despite the fact I don't have the RC car with it, plus it's mainly because at this point in time, that thing is pretty expensive. So because of that though, yeah, that's all there is to it. Again, this segment is pretty short, especially noticeable considering for the fact that I'm about to be preparing for what's going to be up next, but I'll save that discussion for later. So anyway, in terms of the missing games I was currently missing, in terms of the fonts of the eShop exclusive downloads for Nintendo Switch, which appears to be also quite a lot, ranging from Minecraft Nintendo Switch Edition, Arcade Archives Mario Bros, Mario Tennis Aces Online Tournament Demo, but I'm sure enough though, I'm sure that that particular download is no longer there anymore, Minecraft Bedrock Edition, Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo Classics, and in addition to Tetris 99, Arcade Archives Pinball, Mario Tennis Aces Special Online Demo, and Super Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo Classics, Arcade Archives vs. Golf, Arcade Archives vs. Wrecking Crew, and there's also Super Mario Bros. 35, because that game in particular is now basically dead at this point, because it's now considerably the lost media. So as a result, yeah, there's no way we can able to actually get the game now, and even try to play it at the same time. So you get the idea for that point. Plus it's been, you know, almost 5 years ago since when that particular game did somehow first came out, but as a result, it's very short-lived. So either way, in addition to that, there's also Nintendo 64, Nintendo Classics, and Mario Strikers Battle League First Kick, Game Boy Nintendo Classics, and finally, Game Boy Advance Nintendo Classics. Because let's face it though, I already got most of these Mario games physically wise, so yeah, you can get the idea what I was expecting to be able to actually point things out. So, although technically speaking, luckily those games were also backwards compatibility with Nintendo Switch 2. Well, some exceptions here and there, which is a bit complicated to say things right from the get-go, but hey, that's as far as we can able to think about this, I guess. Oh, wait a second, I completely forgot about the phone games, or should I say, miscellaneous. So let's get to it with the phone games out of the way, before we dive into the last few, such as I still managed to get myself Super Mario Run and Mario Kart Tour, both of which are mobile phones, and suffice to say, Super Mario Run is a good time, and Mario Kart Tour, I'm not a big fan of the game, but that's just me, so that's all there is to it for the mobile phone games. In addition, there's also this very special Game & Watch console I still got, and that is of course the Super Mario Bros. Edition of the 2020 release of the Game & Watch console, which not only does it contain one game, but 3 games all in all in terms of the phones of this device, such as Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 2, or Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, and as well as that, Ball, which is actually, without a doubt, is the very first Game & Watch game they somehow released during that time. And as you can tell, yes, it did somehow manage to able to get the Mario skin on it. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool. Back in June phones of in 2020, that is. So, and another thing too, that I would also like to give my honorable mentions when it comes to the phones back on the Wii system again, because as far as you definitely already know, ever since in 2021, I've also got Mario Kart Arcade GP1 as well as Arcade GP2, all thanks to from the homebrew channel, just in case about the fact I can able to experience the arcade games. So as a result, yeah, that's as far as we can able to point things out.
Mamma mia! He certainly got a lot of games, especially because, you know, he is without a doubt the definitive video game character for a reason. So what do you guys think about the forms of this large Super Mario Bros. 40th anniversary game collection? And sure enough, I actually got a lot of games, and in addition to that, some other merchandises as well. So because of that, hope you guys do enjoy it. I mean, there are a couple of games I was missing, like I said before, since in any other categories, as you probably already know. Mainly because, as far as I'm aware, some of these games are pretty expensive at the time, and in addition to that, some of these games are exclusive to Japan, specifically Mario's Super Picross, and in addition to some games on the DS, and one of those games is only exclusive to North America, like, you know, Dr. Mario 64. But regardless of everything else though, much like Sonic the Hedgehog, I was a die-hard Super Mario Bros. Fan, or even Mario in general, because, well, generally speaking, I enjoy quite a lot of games. I mean, there are some bad ones for sure, like, you know, the infamous example being Paper Mario Sticker Star for the 3DS, because, well, we're not going to discuss on that. So, anyway, and so, for the time being though, it's about the fact that, well, hope you guys do enjoy this particular video, and this is me, Maxi, from the likes of the Maxi Toys, and until then, happy 40th birthday for the likes of the Super Mario Bros. Series, which, God, it must have done so well. Especially, it did came out back in 1985, which is roughly the same year as Back to the Future. So yeah, that's actually pretty fantastic, all things considered. So because of that, yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what's going to be up next for the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, but I do know for certain for one thing is that the next Super Mario Bros. Movie is definitely going to be on its way until in 2026. Yeah, I'm really excited about that, and I'm really looking forward to see what's going to be up next for the Mario games lineup, but I'm sure enough though, that'll be a discussion for a later time. So for the time being though, thank you so much for playing my game! That's what Mario usually says every time you complete Super Mario 64 or something. So with that being said though, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys until then.